Welcome everyone to today's podcast. And today we are traveling across the ditch to our beautiful cousins there in New Zealand. I have the honour and privilege of having a guest today that I have known through the industry for many years, but have never had the opportunity to connect face to face. Lucy Waterreus is the Chief Executive of Clubs New Zealand and has spent most of her career working alongside clubs at every level, from behind the bar to the boardroom. She's deeply passionate about the role clubs play in New Zealand communities and works closely with clubs to understand their challenges, support their governance and operations, an advocate for the sector with government and regulators. Lucy is practical, people focused, and firmly believes strong clubs mean stronger communities. Thank you so much for joining me, Lucy. It's lovely to be having this conversation with you.
Thank you. It is so great to be here.
So, bios are wonderful. They always give us that little bit of an overview, but, you've been in the industry for a number of years. And, even though New Zealand and Australia are very close and our clubs are similar, New Zealand has different regulations and different ways that they connect with their communities and why they're there. So I really want to get into that because that to me is just so important because that connection with communities is key to the heart of every club. But of course, also with the hospitality industry, it's creating this awareness more than ever now that this is a wonderful industry to be in. So get in there and start off on the ground like you did and work through and here you are now CEO and in the boardroom. So, I've said you've worked alongside clubs on every level from that first entry point now into the boardroom. But from those points, what have clubs actually need that you haven't or couldn't have learned just from a policy document or at a boardroom table? I'd love to know that.
That's, gosh, when I reflect on my time in clubs, and, I started out 17 plus, or actually it was probably closer to 20 years ago working in clubs and as a fresh-faced glassy and then worked through behind the bar and whatnot. The first thing that comes to mind without a doubt is the people.
Yes.
That is at the heart of what
Mm.
clubs are. And so I think it's about understanding the needs of the members,
Mm.
having the perspective of what those frontline staff are needing, but also being able to connect with the management and the governance as well. So
Yes.
yeah, it's getting those connections. And, my fondest memories of even working in the clubs are like the three guys that would come in every Sunday at 2 o'clock on the dot, and they were just there to catch up and
Yes.
and connect with peers, or it's the volunteers that are there week on week supporting the club. It's that people element that you can't learn from policy
Yeah.
documents and paper.
It's so true. And I think every club has got a table of knowledge, and that's what those three men are.
Yeah.
But you're right, clubs are there. It's about that feeling of connection. And now more than ever, we need that connection. And I was looking at some research the other day, and we're just saying the most loneliest generation globally is Gen Z, and which is absolutely quite frightening because you think, well, here they are, they're highly connected, but they're connected on these things,
On a
screen,
phone. Absolutely.
and they don't have that opportunity to meet, the meeting online. And so
Yeah.
getting them back, into clubs, getting them to see that there's a place for them and for their friends to grow, but also to meet others in other generations. I think there's a lot of myths, and I'm sure you've found it, Lucy, over the years. Oh,
Yeah.
baby boomers are like this, and Gen Zs and Gen Ys are like that. And then when they actually get to work together or they get to have a
Yes.
conversation together, those myths, and those walls come down and those assumptions about each other. But we've got to get them in the room, that old-fashioned water cooler conversation around the office. Well, that's what the
Absolutely.
clubs are for. Yeah.
The chats across the leaners,
Yes.
that's so important. And yeah, there's just some articles coming out in New Zealand at the moment as well around the social fabric, and that they're, it's almost in the worst situation it's been in a long time.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
clubs have a really important role in building that back up and those
Mm.
face-to-face interactions.
Yes, yeah. But it's not just Gen Z because they're on the screen. I think it's
Mm.
also last week I went out to an event. I'm down here in the Southern Highlands. I've been living here now for 6 years. We're in a battle axe block, so we're not right on the road, so we're three back. It's a lovely area. I'm always in and out all the time. My husband's always walking the dog, blah blah blah. But I go to this event last week with my daughter, and I'm talking to this lady, and we find out she's two doors up. Never seen her. Never seen her for 6 years, and she doesn't even know the neighbour who lives at the front of my street,
Oh,
and she's
wow.
been here for 20 years because we're all so busy now
Yeah.
working. It's that end of the baby boomers, the Gen X that are work, work, work. And so even that group and all generations, they need that opportunity to get together and just have that,
Definitely.
yeah, and just feel like they belong to something. There was some American research I found yesterday, and I was talking about little Gen Alphas, which are the top end now, finishing the end of 2024. They
Yeah.
shop online, and we all think, oh, yes, they've
Yes.
literally got a chip integrated into their brain. But in America, they're going back to the shopping malls because that's where they can go and catch up with friends,
Yeah.
and they
They're
actually,
going there with other people and
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
the clubs are so important, but of course, then we have them coming in as employees, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But then how do they start these conversations when they're not used to having a
Yes.
conversation, So,
Yes. Yeah.
and then, of course, there's the ones that you can't ever stop having a conversation either.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So getting the balance right with those different personality types
It
and
is. It is. It's a lot of fun. And of course, just engaging with our members who also have different
yes.
personality types. So look, there's a narrative out there that clubs are just places where people go for entertainment. What does that miss? And what do you want people to understand about the real role clubs play in New Zealand communities?
Yeah. So and yes, clubs are hospitality venues. They have food, they have drink, they have entertainment. But the biggest thing that I would like people to know and understand is that that's just the surface level stuff, and it's what we've already touched on, that they are community assets. They are places of belonging where people can go and find connection and find purpose
Mm,
in their lives. And in New Zealand, especially, I'm not sure if it's the same over in Australia. The club is often that last space that's left for people to get together, and particularly in our rural communities.
yes.
Yeah, so it's really driving home that side of clubs and that the work they do to support the wider community while they are a member based association,
Mm.
the work that they do filters out far further than
Yes.
than the four walls of the club.
Mm, which is important because it's bringing
Yeah.
people in that don't normally go
Yes.
to a club, does it? So we talk a little bit more about how they then stretch out via, broader to the community. What we're seeing now, and we've been talking about it for many, many years, is yes, we can bring associations into our club, but how do we actually go out there and really build this team spirit with our teams going
Mhm.
out outside, and helping people, whether it's mowing lawns, giving blood, reading books,
Yeah.
helping, going to nursing homes, whatever. What are you doing there in particular in New Zealand that's really building this community connection?
So at a national level, we have launched within the last year or two what we're calling our Club Connect
Hmm.
program, and that's really focused around mental health and well-being. So we've partnered with a few people, and particularly working in the rural mental health space. So we are going around the country and helping clubs to deliver some workshops and opportunities for people to come together and learn a little bit more about that, the importance of mental health and well-being, and really trying to break down some of the stigma
Yeah.
that's associated with it. Because as you can understand, when you've got older generations, there is a lot of stigma around
Mm.
that mental health and wellness piece. At an individual level as well, we see clubs, they'll have more local associations and groups that they support.
Mm.
We've had a couple of clubs recently where they've done like really exciting fundraiser days where the staff are all involved. I think they might have got the idea from an Australian club when they were visiting, where all the staff members are on in teams and they're riding the bikes in the club
Oh,
and
with Club
yeah, so
Taree. Yes.
yes,
Mm.
yeah. So the team that covers the most distance and their fundraising. So they are looking at those different ways to get members and staff members on board with their efforts.
Yes, yeah, that's yeah. Club Taree with the CEO Paul Allen introduced that, and it just was just phenomenal because I've done a lot of work with them over the years, and I love the club and Paul and his team. And they're a really young team, and they've
Yes,
really bonded. But it was a lot of fun because they'd had the bikes set up in the club, and
yeah,
and it started this healthy competition, and you'd see
yeah.
the manager or the bar person or somebody from gaming who's already done an 8-hour shift, and then they'd be on their bike
And
because
then,
they didn't want their record to go down.
yeah, yeah,
But it was the raising of money, which really, for people that truly needed it in, because Taree is that regional area that it kept it within their community as well as
yes.
helping nationally, but it was the community spirit and helping those that are
Yeah.
local.
And
'Cause
it pulls the members in that might have just been
yes,
sitting there for a meal and they're sort of sitting there looking at what's going on. And
yeah.
yeah, it just grows. So
Mm.
we're seeing more of those sorts of activities. And it might be, we've got some other clubs up here where they'll have a community partner for the year. And so all their fundraising activity over the course of a year goes towards this particular partner
Yes.
and yeah that the results and the engagement that they get is really meaningful and impactful.
Yes, yeah. Do you also do some work with schools over there,
Yes.
Lucy? Yeah. Mm,
Yeah, so a lot of the clubs have partnerships with the various schools.
mm.
uh, Quite often it will be linked to sport, so getting the school students in and pairing them up with people within the club who can help them with the various sports activities, or they're supporting sports teams within the schools.
Yes, yeah. And once again, it's that grassroots. It's showing that, clubs are there for that entertainment piece and, the adults come in, but the children still come in for meals as well. But it's that connection back, showing, the children that clubs are there for them, for the community. And, the money may go in, but then the money comes back around to the community
Yes.
as well. You made that point about in regional areas, particularly for mental health, having those programs. I know your clubs would be the same as ours, particularly in regional areas when there is a disaster, whether it be flood or fire, that's the hub everybody goes to, whether, it's where the emergency services all rally around, but it's where people can sleep. Many times it's on the highest part of the town, that so to speak, where they can go. But at that mental health space, it's particularly for regional areas where they don't get the medical people like they do in the city. It's having that opportunity to have that discussion. And you're right, a lot of the older generation, there is still that stigma. We talk about it, we've talked about it openly now for so long, but I think even with younger people, there is still that stigma or that shame or that embarrassment when it shouldn't be. So at least going to
Mm.
them, it's giving them an opportunity to actually have that
Yeah,
conversation.
a safe place and
Yes,
space to connect and open up if there are things that are
yes,
challenging them. And yeah, in New Zealand, and we've certainly seen our fair share of weather-related disasters in
yes.
recent times. And yeah, the clubs are really rallying for their communities.
Yes, yeah. So we do the community work, but of course, then there's all those governance and there's regulations.
Yes.
So you work closely with clubs on government, on governance and operations. Where do you most commonly see clubs come unstuck, and what's the fix that makes the biggest difference and the fastest?
Yes. Look, this is not a blanket case for every club, but if I'm looking at the most common, it is really that blurring of the lines between governance and management within clubs. And in New Zealand, particularly in those smaller, more rural clubs, the governance do often have to step in and fill some operational gaps that are there. And that can, yeah, it can really blur those lines
Mm.
and and then the club loses its strategic focus when that
Yes.
happens. So
Mm.
uh, when you do have those blurred lines, the managers often feel they lose their empowerment.
Mm.
Uh, the decisions slow down. It's all that snowballing effect.
Yeah.
So that's really where the progress stalls. And what we've had happen recently in New Zealand is we had clubs over here are registered as in what we call incorporated societies.
Mm.
And we just had a new act come into play. So it's the Incorporated Societies Act 2022. It replaced a 1908
Oh,
Act.
goodness.
So as you can imagine, that 1908 Act was quite light on guidance and anything useful for a modern club.
Yes.
And so we've got this big new piece of legislation, and it does really increase the responsibilities on our executive. So we've really focused at Clubs New Zealand our attention on supporting clubs through the transition to the new act,
Mm.
getting training in place for our executives, and really helping them to understand where those lines sit. And there used to be this line that was used in New Zealand all the time, that it's governance versus management, but that's not what
No.
it is. And so we're really trying to change the narrative that you're working in partnership
Yes.
for the betterment of your clubs.
Mm. And you're right, it's for the betterment of the clubs and for your members, but for the community. But it's the boards needing to understand the responsibilities and the accountability that they have. Because it's a
Absolutely.
big thing to take on a position on a board. And how are you seeing that in New Zealand? Do you see the positions? Because we've had a similar group of people,
Yep.
if we do, without stereotyping them, that have been our, board members for many, many years. But for many of them now, they really, they are retiring and leaving for all sorts of reasons. Do you see, because what we're starting to see here is a change in the people that are going on boards. They are very, very professional, but they're not wanting to be there every month. So it's that different way of how we're organizing meetings. They're making the boards smaller than they were before.
Yes.
Some boards were 15 and now they're down to maybe 7 but also it's getting the quality that we're looking for. Like what I was saying, they were getting professional, but if they need somebody who needs that financial background, then that's who they're going out seeking, instead of in the past where it's been good-hearted volunteers stepping up. So what's that view look like in New Zealand with boards?
Yeah, in New Zealand, we're still very much in that good-hearted
Yes.
volunteers.
Yeah.
It's so the way that our executives are formed is that they are voted in by the membership, and it's generally people putting their hands up when
Yes.
it comes time to do the election. So uh, as I say, it's still a lot of those good-hearted volunteers.
Mm.
There is definitely fatigue out there
Mm.
with those good-hearted volunteers.
Yes.
They are tired, and they are probably seeking to step back and be able to
Mm.
actually enjoy their clubs as
Yes.
members, rather than sitting in that
Mm.
high sit that seat of responsibility. But uh, there are clubs that are really actively looking in how they diversify their boards.
Yes.
There have been a conscious effort to reduce board size, because we do. I mean, we still have a few that are probably sitting at a bit too heavy, but they're reducing their sizes down, looking for how they fill those skill gaps that exist. Uh, but not shrinking the boards. There had been a little bit of a move to shrink the boards right down, and I think that's the danger there, is you lose the ability to
Yes.
diversify and attract the
Mm.
skills that you need. So it's about getting that balance right.
And it's because it is a big thing, for those good-hearted volunteers, and we always need them in the club industry, because they are the backbone. But with that governance point on it, it's a lot of work for them
It
to be
is.
thinking of that as well, and taking on that responsibility. But as I said, without them, clubs wouldn't exist because we need the volunteers,
Exactly,
don't we?
exactly. And it's getting there. I think a lot of the fatigue comes from, as I say, they want to come in and be able to enjoy their
Yes.
club.
Mm.
But they walk in the door and it's like they've got a neon sign plastered
Yeah.
across their foreheads, and so everyone comes to them with their problems around what's happening in the clubs. And
Yeah.
so it's creating boundaries as well so that they can take their governance hat off and be able to enjoy their club.
Yeah, and not hear about the color of the discolored lettuce in this egg sandwich, or that the hand dryer in the lady's third cubicle, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It's, yeah, as you said, be able to enjoy the club. So look, we've talked about our boards and our governance, but let's look at our frontline and our management. The teams that are there that welcome us when we come through the door, that provide us food, beverages, make sure that we're safe. So how does recruitment and retention, it's been notorious pain points across hospitality globally, I think, for
Yes.
decades. But how are New Zealand clubs going about attracting staff, and what are the clubs then are getting it right to actually hold on to them, because that seems to think we can attract them, but they don't always stay. And that's for, there's no fault. Some people are just right for this industry. Some people want to try it and go, oh, gee, I didn't realize I was going to be standing for 8 hours. And then having to deal with people. Yes, we do. It's
Hmm.
about hospitality. So yeah, so how do you go about that in New Zealand? Attracting and then at least keeping them. Mm.
Yeah. I look at my own journey and I go, okay, I'm probably one of those slightly unique people where I fell into clubs and hospitality as that, oh, it's going to be the thing that tides me over while I'm at university and
Yes.
studying, and then here I am many years later, still very much in it. And I think, yeah, a lot of our clubs are probably still quite traditional in their approach to recruitment and retention.
Mm.
You've obviously got the challenges that come with being in a cost of living crisis. Running a club is incredibly challenging. So getting the balance right in that respect is really, really hard.
Mm.
But where we're seeing clubs succeeding is where they are really putting their focus into their culture and their
Yes.
people. And it's a strategic decision by the executive, which then flows down into management and staffing. So the clubs that are really investing in their people through training and opportunities, and then also building those career pathways,
Mm.
it's incredibly important
Mm.
to retaining staff.
It is, because we lost so many, particularly that middle management group, during those few years ago, won't mention it.
Yeah.
And then so they left. And so now it's that, we're looking at, are clubs looking at succession planning? Are they looking at building those? And as you said, showing people that there is the opportunity for an amazing career path in
Mm.
hospitality. You may start, as you said, Lucy, picking up glassy
Yeah.
classes. It was funny. I said to somebody the other day in one of my frontline training, I said, "Oh, are you a glassy?" And they went, "A what?"
Oh, well.
I said, the person who picks up the glasses has about 15 schooner glasses. No. I went, oh, okay. So we don't call you glassies
No.
anymore. That's that's very old fashioned, Michelle. But it's just showing that here you were picking up glassies and now you're a CEO and you just love this industry, and
Yes.
it's developed so much that it's but it's got to move quicker. I mean, nobody is going to wait around, Gen Z in particular, for, till somebody, decides to retire in 33 years, or, oh, well, just because you've been here for 11 years, you're going to be the next duty manager. It's got to be a lot quicker, and it's got to be done on merit, not just tenure, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, and yeah, we do have, and luckily in clubs in New Zealand we do have staff and management who have put in considerable service to their
Yes.
club. So we are lucky to have those people, absolutely. But it's also, yeah, building those pathways to bring those new people through as well.
Yeah. And having those, those ones that have been in the industry for a long time, because I know we're looking at this over the next, definitely over the next 5 years, we're going to be seeing a number of retirements from amazing CEOs that they have given, they've shown that pathway to those that will be succeeding, not just to the COO, but, right down to the duty manager and then the supervisors and then the frontline teams, and showing them there is that pathway, because when they leave, they're going to be taking a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom that we don't want to lose. So if they've shared that with the team, and to me, it's continuing on their legacy, which is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's just getting them to do it,
Yes.
amongst all the other things that
Yes.
they have to
Yeah.
do, and
And yeah, I mean, in New Zealand clubs, we tend to have the manager or the general manager, and they probably wear the hat of COO and
right.
chief marketing officer and chief finance officer, and so they're wearing all of those hats
Mm,
and doing all of those roles, and it can be, when you're that busy and you've got that much on your plate, passing that knowledge on becomes incredibly difficult.
it does. And then
Yeah.
that's then, they don't have that time, but it's
Yeah.
just, it's all the things that we have impacting on our lives, as
Yeah.
well as thinking about that next group and that succession planning.
Yeah.
Because, today we've got 4 generations under one roof, and
Yes.
even some venues have got 5 generations, because the alphas, even though they're not over 18, are working in the bistros, working out the
Yes.
back. And it's quite interesting. Some of our smaller clubs have even recruited them as young as 14, and have got a
Mm,
really great program through the schools, but also with their parents and
yes.
guardians. That, particularly in small little village areas, they use the courtesy bus to pick them up, take them home. They go home with a pizza.
Yeah.
They're going to make sure the school, exams, the
Yes.
reports are still good. But what it's doing is nurturing that group, that they become part of. They see what the culture is. They know what the values are, and those values, to me, when you were talking about the culture of the organization, is absolutely key, isn't it?
Yes.
And then having them as part of the vision. So, with all these generations, how does that dominant dynamic play out in actual practice? Because it's very great for us to say, "Oh, yes, they just get on so beautifully." But what
Yes.
does it mean for how clubs develop their people and plan for who leads the organizations into the future?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, and probably a an area that we're grappling with in New Zealand at the moment, and it's that friction between, but this is the way we've always done it,
Mm,
and but this is the way we could
yes.
do it.
Mm,
So yeah, we've got those people that have probably been working in the industry for a long time. They're quite set in their ways of how a club should operate. And then you've got these young generations coming in that are tech savvy, that are glued to their phones all the time, have a different view of the world, and it's that mixing of minds.
yeah.
So yeah, there's been a lot of work that's had to go into understanding people really,
Yes.
and where they're
Yes.
coming from. And it's not just about age, it's about demographics and backgrounds, and just yeah, being able to work across those differences.
Yes. 'Cause It's
Yeah.
that it's that diversity of thought. We need
Yes.
that. And if we
Yeah.
don't have it in the workplace, we certainly have it in our patrons who are coming through the door.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
all coming from different walks of life, different ideas, different values. So yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it's probably that's, one of the areas that I get so excited about in clubs is that we are so diverse. And for me personally, I love going into a club and just having a yarn with an older member that can tell me all the history of the
Yeah.
club and their involvement over the years, and through to, we were at an event recently and we had a young, he must have been in his 20s, and he was dancing with the darling grandma up on the dance floor, and for me that's the stuff that makes me really happy when I
Yeah.
go into a club, and
Yeah.
just seeing those interactions.
It's
And it's also it's what you were saying about the value, learning the opportunities to learn the values, and when we look out in the world, and we do have that social fabric that is under pressure. With the cohesion is is not there at the moment.
Mm.
And I think there is such an opportunity for young people going into clubs and learning from their elders
Yes.
about how the world works, about respect, and being able to appreciate different viewpoints.
Yes, and to be tolerant. We talk
Yeah,
about our patrons, they're not as tolerant as they once
yeah,
were. Well, that's the same with the staff, and it's not saying in a bad way. I always see clubs as this extension to our patrons' living room. They come
yes,
into the club, but it is those that are providing the amazing service that to many of our patrons, that's their family, whether that's through choice or distance or whatever it may be. So having somebody who is, that Alpha or Gen Z, being able to have those conversations, or as you say, having a dance with somebody there,
yeah,
who's perhaps even being a pre-veteran, it gives them that opportunity to break down those barriers, learn from each other. And yes, just those little things that perhaps we took once for just common sense and what we just had because, it's a different world. Everybody's just so used to pressing a button and having it delivered, or going to one of these machines and just pressing in a question or asking your phone, and it gives you the answer without
yeah,
actually looking it up. I had my grandchildren that are 10 and 13 over for the Easter holidays, and with them I got them this book, and it's 1,000 amazing questions to ask. So I said, so what question would you like to ask, like why is the sun hot? And they went, I just went straight to the phones and asked. I went, no, you've got
yeah,
to turn the paper. And that's just the book I think
yeah,
is fantastic. I love reading this book because I think, oh wow, all these questions I've always
yeah.
wondered. But it's like that. We may not have a book, but the book is them telling the stories, isn't it, for these
Yes, yeah,
generations?
absolutely.
Mm. And that's what makes the difference. So before we wrap up, one last question, or two last questions. In regards to
Yeah.
the industry's landscape, what do you believe are the biggest pressures clubs will face over the next 5 years? What will be genuinely thriving club look like? And what has to happen between now and then to get there?
So the biggest pressure by far for our New Zealand clubs is regulatory burden. So we are like Australia, we're incredibly regulated in a number of ways, and yeah, it largely under the sale and supply of alcohol, and then with gaming. So in New Zealand, our clubs can only sell and supply alcohol to existing members, their guests, and then members from another club. So
Oh, right.
I can't just, if I was not a member, I can't just walk into the club and have a drink and a meal. I've got to jump through all these hoops
Right.
to be able to get in the door. So that creates major challenges for our clubs being able to diversify and look at how they do things differently. So that's one of the biggest challenges. The other one where we differ quite a lot from Australia is our class 4 gaming.
Mm.
So, a club in New Zealand can have a maximum of 18 gaming machines.
Mm.
We've got all sorts of sinking lid policies in place. We've got a whole lot of regulations there and compliance requirements. But the other thing that's on the horizon is we have just got online casino gaming laws coming into effect very, very soon. So that is going to really challenge our land-based gaming operations and put a lot and yeah, if we're being realistic, it's going to put a lot of pressure on our clubs. So we've got to watch that really, really carefully and make sure that we're there to support our clubs as these changes happen. So we've been advocating quite strongly with the government of the day to make some changes to the alcohol laws for clubs to try and at least give them some options
Yeah.
and how they operate. So it's navigating those challenges, but then it's also just at a club level. It's the clubs that are engaging with the community, that are getting outside of we're a club that has a bar and a restaurant,
Yes.
that are looking at things differently. They're the ones that are thriving and challenging the traditional view of what a club is. They're the ones that are yeah, that are seeing really positive changes, and the ones that are just content to sit and do what they've always done are the ones that are unfortunately struggling in today's environment.
Yeah, and we see the same thing here. Without getting too much into politics, we look at, I'd like to look at two things that you've just made there. One about the alcohol. Does those same rules apply to pubs or is it just clubs?
Just clubs. So pubs have what we call an on license in New Zealand, so they
Right.
can serve the general public.
Right. So, because we have the same here, there's always this difference between clubs and pubs. And, getting back to our very first reason for this conversation is about communities. And when a person comes to a club, they have the people, their welfare is in the mind of every staff member.
Mhm.
And that's what I love about clubs. We ensure, even whether it's restrictions like you have with only 18 machines or ours that are very different here in Australia, we have our teams ensuring the best welfare for our patrons. Online gambling, I'm sorry, takes that away and there is no
Totally.
welfare. So to me, I'm just, yeah, and I know, there's it's a lot. It's been going on illegally, so maybe making it more legal, it'll make a difference. But it always concerns me. I know we're having different regulations have just gone through recently about online betting during our football matches
Yes.
because children are watching it, but it's not even children. To me it's just all of us. You go there and it's like every second ad.
Mhm.
And and good for them. I know everybody needs to make a dollar in this world, we're all in business, but that is very different to what our clubs offer, which is that security, your welfare, entertainment. Sure, there's gaming, but there's food that you can sit in a club all day and have a glass of water and nobody will ask you to move. That's the
Exactly.
difference, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a safe space where
Yes.
the staff get to know the members on quite closely, even in really big clubs, and there's
Yes.
that it's almost like you've always got someone that's looking out for you.
Yes, yeah. And to me that's what the key is, and I know whether they're playing bingo or whatever, if somebody's missing, it's like, oh, somebody's not here. Or that guy, I know, once again when I do my training, I always hear the young ones say, oh, who's that chap that comes in, and like a Friday on a Thursday at 5 o'clock, haven't seen him for a while. And they said, oh yeah, no, he's all right, he's on holidays, or he had to go in for an operation, and they know it. No, and these are these young kids, and you sort of think they don't even know his name, but they know that he's the guy that always sits in that seat. So it's that connection, it's that feeling of belonging. But
Absolutely.
it's there. The clubs are there for the community, and that's what we need to keep instilling into people to work in the industry, but also to support the clubs. So
Yeah.
before we finish off, because I know I could chat with you all day, Lucy, this has been absolutely wonderful.
Thank
Please
you.
share how our audience can connect with you, and I know you're also on LinkedIn, but yeah, just probably a little overview about what the difference between the clubs in the North and the South Islands are too, because I was amazed by the different sizes. Yeah.
I mean, look, we've got clubs that are they're 15 members that get together once a week, and that is what makes them a club. And then our largest clubs are up over 10,000 members now, so that's really really exciting. Yeah, we've got between the North and the South Island, we're probably split with about eight. Oh, I think it's probably 40-60 split. So 60% of our members belong in the North and 40% down in the South Island. And I guess this is a silver lining of the earthquake that was in Christchurch a number of years ago, is that we've got some quite impressive clubs that were able to rebuild
Yeah.
following that time. So we've got some really really special clubs down in the South Island, and we've got some absolutely amazing ones dotted around in the north as well. So for anyone coming over from further afield and visiting New Zealand, I definitely recommend getting out to some of our more rural clubs as well, and seeing what they're doing.
It's a lot of fun, and because I know when I was training over there a number of years ago now, I was amazed by some of the you'd walk into the club and there were all these beer glasses set up with like little tags of names on it.
Yes.
And they say, oh yes, they just go in there, that's their glass, they go and they just go back and forth, you know. Does that still happen since COVID?
That still happens in some clubs. Yeah, they've got their handle clubs, and their particular glasses are
Yeah.
ready and waiting in the fridges for when they arrive.
I just
So
it's just so
yeah,
cute.
yes, yeah.
I
So
know cute's probably the
there
word
are
to
some
use, but
challenges with, the members of the club that are very familiar with that setup. But as a
yes.
new person walking in, you can be like, what is this? So
Yes.
as long as the staff are there to help people out and let them know what the going is in that club, it's
Yes.
yeah, each club has got its own little quirks and
Yeah.
and uniquenesses which make them really special.
It does. It certainly does. And as I said, Lucy, I'm sorry you haven't shared how people can connect with you because I know, for a number of years, and some clubs still do it. We have different conferences in both countries, and so we go back and forward. But, even from some staff coming from some smaller New Zealand clubs coming to Australia's larger clubs, and some of them then going back into a
Yeah,
smaller club, that's a real eye opener. Yeah. So how can
certainly.
they connect with you?
Yeah, so obviously I am on LinkedIn, but
Yes.
otherwise the best way to get in touch with us is to visit our website. So that's clubsnz.org.nz.
Mhm.
And yeah, we've obviously got a lot of information about what we do on there, but you can also get in touch with us as well.
Wonderful. Well, look, I'll put all those links in the show notes. But thank you so much once again, Lucy. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I've certainly enjoyed it today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.